Are you looking for an easy, simple, and fastest way to learn all about MySQL database? You may have come across that term and you wonder like what it is, how do I use it, how do I create it, and what are all the things I can do with it? If that is something that you are looking for, make sure you watch this videos because I'm gonna tell you everything you need to know about MySQL databases, tables, field structure, the whole 9 yards. So without any further ado, let's get this party started. All right, everybody. Welcome to the Code with Mark YouTube channel. In here, I create helpful video to make you a professional web developer a lot faster. If you're new to the channel, consider subscribing and comment and check out my other videos that you may potentially find it helpful. Or if you want to get more in touch with me, check out the link in the below. There's a private Facebook group that I have that help web developers just like yourself to speed up their web development projects. Consider joining it because if you have any question, make sure you leave it in the comment box or in the Facebook group. And having said all that, so the thing that you are going to need before we can actually learn about our MySQL databases, tables, columns, and all that stuff is something that is called your local server. There are plenty of local servers out there, but the one that I recommend you should install on your PC, it is called XAMPP. That is XAMPP. And you could just Google search it, you will find it. First thing, be the first one that comes up, install it. It is very simple. And then after you install it, you want to see a screen something similar to this. And then what you want to do is, let's just pretend we installed it, and then the thing that you're going to see is like this. And then all you have to do is start your own Microsoft or MySQL server. Just click on the start button, and then that is it, and your server is started. And then you're going to click on admin, and that's going to open up your PHP admin. Oh, let's see why it didn't work. Okay, so we have to start the Apache server as well, so that way it can open it up. So now we refresh it. Here it is. So this is the screen that is want to look something similar to your web hosting, depending on which web host you have, and it's going to look something like that. Every time you create a database, MySQL database, you're going to see something like that per database, depending on your hosting service, whichever one you use, right? So let's move on. So let's pretend you install the XAMPP server, local server, into your computer, whether you have Linux, whether you have Mac, whether you have Windows. It has a version for every one of them. So go on, download it, and so you can follow along. But someone along the line like, hey man, I need to pause the video, obviously, right, and then move forward. But if you still have some comments or your question that you don't understand, join the Facebook group and ask it in there. We have a lot of people in there that are going to help you all the questions you have. I answer a lot of questions there. So if you want to come join us. All right, so move forward. So once you're over here, so let me zoom it in for you guys a little more so you can see it easily. So we have a thing called database up top here, all the tabs. So let me close this out. So we click over here. So these are all the listed databases. So if you want to create one on your local machine, all you got to do is just type in the database name, whatever that database name is. So let's just pretend for a second. We're just going to create MK-007. I don't know why, but why not, right? So let's move on. So we're going to click on create. And this is created, and on the left hand side right over here it will tell you MK-007. I already have the MK-007, but it's already there. But we are working with this. So if you want more real estate of your database screen, there's going to be arrow right over here up on the top. You click on it, and this is going to maximize the whole screen for you, so give you a little more real estate to use. So now that you have your MySQL database created, Now what do you do? Right? So the next thing what you can do is create tables. So what I want to do is I want to demonstrate a thing for you. So I'm going to open up my Microsoft Excel or Google Spreadsheet. Google Sheets works the same way. So let's suppose we have the sheets right here, right? So consider this. All right, go away. So this is your Microsoft Excel sheet. So we have up top column A, B, C, D, E, so on and so forth. And we have rows going downwards. And then this is your sheet one. If you want to create another one, it will be in sheet two, sheet three, so on and so forth. So each one of these sheets, you can think of it as tables. And then within the table, like up top, you have columns. So you can call it user underscore name, and you can call it email, you can call it ID, whatever you want to call it. So these are your columns within that table. And then rows will be the amount of rows you want to have within those particular columns for that particular table, or in this case will be your sheet. It's the same principle. Just want you to visualize how that works. And then the difference will be each one of these columns, you can specify what kind of data it is going to store. Let me repeat it. What kind of data it is going to store in your columns. So hopefully you're with me. If you're not, make sure either leave a comment or go join the Facebook group so where you can ask some private question that you don't feel comfortable putting it out in the public. That's why I'm here. If you're like, hey, I don't want to join the private Facebook group, there's going to be a link in the below where you can contact me personally, because I want to make sure you understand, because my goal here for this particular channel is to help you become a web developer, or more specifically, a professional web developer a lot faster. All right, so assuming you are with me so far and you understand, you're like, this is pretty cool, it is easy, and you're like, okay, let's move forward. So all right, let's go. So now that you understand the general concept of how the table works, we're gonna go over here, we're gonna create a table, and we'll call this T1, and then we can have a number of columns for this particular table. We'll just call it, let's just say 3. And it doesn't matter, you can have X amount of columns you want, whether it be 10 columns, 20 columns, or 200 columns, right? It doesn't really matter. So you just click on go, and then this is where I was telling you that each column can have its own data type, and the type is right over here. So what I typically do is I make my very first column to be called a rec ID. That's just like a auto increment ID that automatically increments, and that's that. And then for this, I just changed. And then speaking of which, let me just slow it down for you, because for me it's like, okay, boom, 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 and I'm done. But if you're watching this and looking at it for the very first time, like, holy crap, what is all this stuff, right? Because that's the first time I felt and experienced the same thing when I was learning this stuff. And I'm like, holy crap, what the hell is all this stuff? What do I do? What do I do? And I have to watch like 20 different videos to understand it. But my goal for you with this particular video, by the time we are done with this, you should be able to understand and know how to create a database, how to create a table, and how to create a column with specific data type. So in here, under your type, if you click on it, you will see the one that says int. That stands for integer. And if I hover my mouse over it, you'll see it can hold up to that 4 byte of data, which is pretty big, which is like 10 digits high. And then your varchar is a string data that you can specify up to 250 character or more. So now you can go up to 65,000 character, which is pretty good. So imagine if you have a blog post or something like that, right? You can use that varchar and say, I want to use this, and then you could content of your blog post, you could literally dump it in here. I don't recommend it, but you have the option. What I do recommend, if you want to store the amount of data for your text data, use text. In here, they give you a lot of space, like literally over 2 million worth of words you want to put in there. You could dump it in here and you'll be fine. No problem at all, right? So this is what it is. So what I recommend is this. You use the text to store large amount of text data, and hence the word text in your MySQL table. And then for your date, this is just your regular date identified by your year, month, and then date. This is what is known as the Unix date timing. And then we move on to numeric value, which means if you want to have a store a tiny number between up to 127 character long, no, up to 256 character long, and then you have it small, and you can go through it. But what I recommend for you, just to be on the safe side, in case your table increases over time, just use the big int number, which is a pretty big one. And then we have a decimal. If you want to have a decimal as part of your column, you can include that, float, double, and the real, and all that stuff. And then there's a boolean, and there's so much stuff in here. When you look at it, like, oh my god, which one really use? I can guarantee you, from my own personal experience, even though there are ton of stuff in here, there are only handful of stuff that I actually use in all of my project. And then if you follow those handful of stuff, I promise you, you will have no problem with your web development project. And you will start to see when I go into it, stuff that I actually use and what it's for, and that's that. So let's move forward. So in here we have our strings, so we can use char, varchar, tiny text, and then also we have a medium text, and we have a really long text. So, and then we have a balls mean like this means it's gonna store like unlimited amount of text, and that's that. Then we have long, and then we have special character, we have a geometric points, so on and so forth, and all of this stuff. Hypothetically speaking, right? This is a ton of stuff in here. But let's suppose for 1 second, you are gonna create yourself a blog, hypothetically speaking, right? And then what kind of table structure would you want? So let's just do this. So I go over here, and I don't want to have anything in here. So what I will do is we'll figure this out. Let's say. So I'll bring up my table here, my Excel table. So I'll delete all this. So for your blog post, you're gonna have a record ID. Let's say record ID. Then you're gonna have a post ID if you want, or if you don't want it. Let's just say for now you don't want it. So it's gonna be post title. And then we gotta have post text. And then we have a post date and time. And this is how I abbreviate date and time, which is going to be DTTM, date and time. This is what I do. And then, can you think of anything else? There could be plenty of other things. So it could be categories, it could be a tag, so on and so forth. So let's just say there is more stuff in here, bring in here. So I can say post cat, post tags, and then so on and so forth. But in short, these are going to be my, let's say, 6 columns in here. So if I want to use that particular structure to create my table for my MySQL, what I can do is, let me just put this side by side here. And we'll make this smaller, go over here. I can minimize this since I don't need it. Here we go. All right, so how many columns do I need? I need 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, right? 5 and 6, yes. So I can go over here, 6 columns. And in here, I just name the table posts, and I click on go. So this is what I literally will do. I come in here, and then I change it to big int because I want the number to go up to 20. In case my table increases, you have like gazillion posts, it can go up to 20 long character wise in terms of numbers. So this is going to be a record ID. And then For my title, I'm literally just gonna go over here and say text. For my post text, obviously it's gonna be text, or I can make a really long text, but I'll just say for right now, just text. For my, actually one more thing I wanted to add. No, actually I have it here already. So I have my text, category is gonna be text, this is gonna be text, and this is gonna be date and time. So let's just copy this over here. So go over here, text, and then my post is going to be text. For my category is going to be that. For my tag is going to be text. And then for this, I could just make it, I'll show you now. So we have all these columns in here, right? So next, what I wanted to do is my post category is going to be a text as well. And then for my tags, which could be comma separated, it's also going to be a text. And then for my post date and time, I'm going to simply come up to under the category of date and time. I can pick and choose. I could say I want only to have a date, or I can have a date and time, or the current timestamp. What that means is whenever you select this timestamp, whenever you insert a record into your table, it's going to take the timestamp of when it was inserted. So make sure you do that. If you are going to update it, it's going to change that to whatever time it was updated. It's a very, very useful thing to have. As compared to date and time, you have to tell it whatever the date and time you wanted to enter in. So what I typically do is I just leave it as timestamp. And that's it. So the whole point of us writing code is automate it as much as possible. And this particular timestamp feature is going to automate it. And then if I scroll up here, and then what I wanted to do is I want to click on, let me zoom out just a little bit maybe. All right, so over here under the record date and time, I'm going to check this off. What that indicates is it's going to automatically increment it by one this particular record. So if I click on over here, and then I'm going to make this a primary key. And then after that, all I'm going to do is click on save. And then it comes up. So here it is. So all of my text and everything else that I put in here, my 6 columns. So if you go over here right now, it's like, hey, this is what comes up here. So if I go back to my database, which is going to be right over here, which is MK -007. And now if I go over here, it's going to show me this is table 1. This is the post, the name of the table. If I want to look at the structure of it, I click on structure. This is going to open up another screen, and over here it's going to tell me all the data type and everything else is there. So let's suppose if we want to browse through it, see what kind of data does it have. At the moment, it doesn't have any data. So if you want to insert the data, what we can do is we can go over here where it says insert. All right, and then from there you can put in the title. So we'll just put like a first post. Text could be, this is, obviously I'm doing this manually, right? But you're gonna have your own way of on the front end side to insert the data in here. I just want to show you how this works. So this is my first blog post text. And if I scroll down and then my category, I could just call it code with Mark, coding web app, comma, so on and so forth, right? And then for my tags, actually, yeah, that could be a category. Then I'll just copy it over here, call it MySQL table, MySQL table, and so on and so forth. And then for my timestamp, notice this is current timestamp. I don't have to insert it. And if I want to insert more than one record, I could do that. But if I just want to insert one record being one row, all I gotta do is click on this go, and then it's inserted because it tells me like one row is inserted. And if I go back to browse, now I should see one row of information. So if I go over here, and here it is. So if I want to edit something in here, I can literally just double click. Let's say, for example, I want to edit the post title. I just click on it and I just type 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 5, I guess, and then click OK and click out of it. Then it's going to update it automatically. So right now you'll see the record ID number is 1. So let's say if I want to add another record, right? What I can do is I could just go to repeat the process, and this time around I'm just going to type in number to post, and then blah blah blah. This time around I'm going to be lazy and not put too much information into it, or not too much effort into it. And then that's that, and then go over here and go back to my browse, and there it is. And then you will see all of this. My post title is there, my text is there, category, post tag, and the timestamp has added automatically. And also the record ID also has automatically inserted in there because we used the auto increment feature of it. And if you're like, what the hell, I don't remember that, let's go back to structure. And then if we want to, right over here, if we want to look at it, say how do we get it, we're going to click on change. And then this little checkbox is where it automatically adds it as an auto increment thing. So let's say, hypothetically speaking, you insert this and now you're like, oh man, this is pretty cool. Now I want to also insert another column because my application requires it, or you thought of something else. You're like, hey man, that would be kind of cool. And how do I do that? So what you do is go to structure, and then right over here, you can insert it at the beginning of the table or after your record ID, post ID, text ID, so on and so forth. So let's say you want to add it after, I don't know, tags. And then how many columns you want to add. You insert the number of columns in here. So in this case, I just want to add 1. I'm going to click on go. And it's the same thing. You type in the thing that you want to call your column. I'll just call it I don't know, post type. There you go. And then from there, what I typically would do, because anything that is text, I just make it in text. If anything that's number, I make it into big int. And then anything has to do with the date and time, I just make it into date and time. If I want to specify what date and time that is, I'll pick this. And then if I want to just system to automatically do it, I just leave it a timestamp, and that's that. So in this case, because it's a post type, I'm just going to make it as a text, and then I'm going to click on save, and then there it is. So there's my thing. If I go back to my browse, obviously, because we inserted the column after 2 rows of data were inserted, there's going to be, the post type is going to be blank as we expected. So we can just type it in here, call it, I don't know, code with Mark, and then I could type in get your, I don't know, I'm just making stuff up at the go, gift, get your gift from the link below, like that, right? So let's say this is what I added in there. And this is what it is. Now you're like, oh man, I want to change the particular column type to something else. So that's very easy to do. What you do is go to structure. You go over here, whichever column you want to change the data type for. So you go over here. So let's say, put hypothetically speaking, right? So this particular one is set to text. And if you want to change to long text, you click over here, change, and then you click on the drop down box and you go all the way down here. Let's just say this, long ball. And then you click save. And if you go back to structure, and then here it is. Voila, it is done. It is simple as that. So hopefully, up until now, you have been following along and you are like, this is pretty cool. Thank you so much for teaching me this. Now I better understand it. If you really found it helpful, please consider subscribing, and also consider joining the Facebook private group in which you can ask your questions. And there's going to be other members who can potentially help you solve your web development questions that you have, or problems that you have, and help you create your next big project in no time. As I always said, happy coding, guys.